So welcome to another war game review from the PlayerState.com. My name is Alexander.
And I'm Grant.
And today we're taking a look at the biggest box in wargaming. That's not true, but it's close to it.
It's actually bigger than OST. It is bigger, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's huge. So this is, if you can hear me from the back here.
Are you using that as cover? Does that offer you a blue dye in defense? Okay.
So this is Assault Red Horizon 41 from a new German wargaming company called Assault Games. So you've seen the front cover. I'm gonna move it now because it's
in the way.
Insane. So
and the designer's name is Wolfgang Klein.
Excellent German name. Very strong name.
No relation to you,
Nope.
nor myself.
Nope.
Kleinhens Klein.
Yes.
Which still blows my mind to this day. But
yes. Wolfgang Klein. Come on.
Yeah, right. So how much more German can you get?
How are you not going to play a game designed by that guy?
Yeah, it's awesome. So, first-time designer,
Yes.
new company.
Brand
This
new.
came off Kickstarter about 6 months ago, give or take. So it's a 2021 release.
This is a two-player hex encounter tactical combined arms World War II game.
Lots of tanks.
A lot of descriptors. Yes.
Lots of tanks,
So-
lots of tank guns.
And
Trucks.
Red Horizon 41, this is Operation Barbarossa.
Yes.
That's the setting. You get
Germans
Russians in
and
the
Russians.
box and Germans in the box. And it is that early war blitzkrieg stuff.
Yep.
You're fighting with
Panzer IIs.
yeah, Panzer IIs, Bisons, T-60s, BT-7s, you're like pea shooting each other.
But, you know, it was really fun.
Oh, I love it.
You know, a lot of times you talk about early war and it's like, pew pew, and I missed. But, you know, this one, it was pew pew and you missed a lot. But it
Yes.
felt good. And there were times where we had some good rolls and we're like, hey, yeah. And, you know, it was fun. It was cool.
I really, really enjoyed it. And I don't know what it is. I actually really enjoy this kind of earlier part of World War II. Mm-hmm. Because, I don't know, I feel like every game you play is like Shermans and Panzer IVs and Panthers and Tigers and T-34-85s. And you're like, cool, we've seen all of that.
Well,
how many early war games do you get where you get to play around with the stuff that was like, this is left over from interwar period?
Yes.
And like, we're playing with the stuff that they were learning lessons from, like, oh no, this isn't good enough.
Right.
Like,
The gun's not big
lessons
enough.
were learned from this engagement.
Yeah.
The armor is paper thin.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. There's something really interesting about playing with these.
Well,
kind of
and every
units.
time we've played a 1939, 1940, 1941 war game, I'm thinking of like the Dunkirk games that we've played, where it's Panzer IIs and...
Usually you're playing those at a scale where you don't get this level of granularity.
Right,
though,
you're right. Those are a little more large. This is scoped in, and you get those details, and it just was cool.
Yeah, like, sometimes I don't want to just slog it out with heavy big cats. I want to get into these little light tanks and some of the recon units and some of what they were trying to do. And it's interesting from a tactical perspective to play around with some of that stuff.
Yes.
How many games do you get to have T-35s on the board? Almost zero.
I don't know that we've ever played one that's had...
I don't...
Or T-60s, really.
Yeah, like, I don't know. There's so much interesting tank design and tank philosophy that was being kind of developed half of it on the fly, and you get to do some of that and play with some of that in this game.
Yeah,
and it was a very enjoyable experience.
Yeah, we only played one scenario.
Yes.
I mean, I'm going to be full disclosure here. This box is chocked full. We thought there was almost 40 scenarios.
Yeah, there might be more.
And some of them can be linked into a campaign where your guys literally get experience and go from, what was it, recruits to hardened to veteran to elite.
There's what? Was it 10 scenarios in the campaign? 12?
I believe there was, yes. Yeah,
like, it's something like that. Like, you have your regular scenario book, which has like 12 scenarios and like 3 or 4 training scenarios in it.
Yep.
And those are like, this is the one-off. You put some guys on the board, you know, like you've got with Conflict of Heroes or Combat Commander, things like that. But then you get a whole separate campaign book with all different scenarios in it. It's not just like, oh, you can play the other one sequentially and it's a campaign. Right. They wrote a whole campaign that I believe is historical.
It would be my guess, yes. I mean, he's got dates there. He's got locations that seem correct and accurate. I mean, he's got, sketches showing formations
he's gone
and
all
locations.
out in
and I was looking at this. There's a couple that are named the same, but they're like 2A and 2B. So I'm, without having looked into that, I'm wondering if those are just extensions of that,
or is it a choice?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Sure.
Frankly, I'm going to say I'm not sure. But I mean, that scenario book, there's 30 pages in here.
Yeah.
Right. At least there's 46 pages, and I don't know. And frankly, for a first game from a company, this seems a little polished and a little a little finished. You know, a lot of times we've played some games from new companies that, no offense,
yeah,
they're not veteran designers and publishers. This feels like it has a little bit more of that.
Yes.
Some polish.
They've gone like all out with the production. The production value of this game is extremely good. It's geomorphic maps.
And they're really thick.
These are very thick pieces of heavy cardboard.
Double-sided.
Yeah, dual-sided, and they're
actually lock.
And they lock together, and they can go in any orientation.
So we were talking about that element. We
Yeah.
played other games like Conflict of Heroes. They use like a little smaller map. It's a paper map, but they don't interlock.
And
you just fold them out. They have a crease in the middle. Man, it needs a big box like this,
Yes.
but that's really nice.
Yeah,
and they were clear. I thought the terrain was good. I thought the numbers and letters that are on there that identify them were well read.
Yeah, there was never any confusion about what was what terrain, and the center dots are.
I did have a couple, like these big rocks versus the little rocks. I was thinking,
just they're all rocks.
It's just rocky.
Yeah.
But there were some. But I like how they have that terrain and that texture and that feeling there. It's cool. Gives some thematic element to it.
Yes. Yeah, I enjoyed what this game has to offer. You know, it's kind of a, generally speaking, stacking limit of 1.
Yeah.
You're going to have anywhere from like, I don't know,
20,
10 to 20
30, yep.
units on the board, depending on how big the scenario is. And the boards, whilst they're large in size, the hexes are also pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the boards aren't huge.
No.
So, it looks massive
Well,
when
this
you
is
set out 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, this scenario is 3 different boards. So, that's a good sized play area, but it's not cumbersome.
Yeah, a tank's got 5 movement, it can get across a whole board in 2 turns. Right?
Yeah, right.
Like, it's not...
They're about 10 wide. Yeah.
The size of the board, it's physically large, but spatially not that big.
Yes, because the hexes are big.
Yes. And I don't know, I like that. It's very clear, it's easy to play with, you've not got a ton of stuff stacked.
Yeah.
There's only ever 1 marker on each unit, generally speaking.
Well,
I think you can get 2.
1 marker or 2 markers and then a wound marker, right? 1 or 2 wounds that they will have taken. But guess what? The counters you do not need to refer to because you've got these unit cards that have all the statistics you need from movement to defense values to attack and range values. They also have keywords. This Panzer II is quick and rapid fire, and those are listed on the back so you can understand, hey, here's what that unit does.
Capabilities on the back.
And some of that, as we were playing, we were forgetting. And
you're constantly flipping them over. Eventually you'll...
you're going to lock that in because you'll understand, that's what that means. But the counter design, very simple. I think that's very simple. It's got a unit silhouette. It's got the nationality. It's got a facing marker for anti-tank guns, artillery, and tanks. Infantry don't have a facing.
And any non-infantry units have a facing.
And then it's got a unit ID.
Which matches the unit ID that's on the card.
Yes. So you can, for ready reference. And then you flip it over, it's got a reduced side. They also have, that doesn't have hit points on the front. I just noticed. Oh, the other ones don't either. Sorry.
Yes, infantry base units, only AFVs have them on the front.
Right.
I don't know why. In fact, they don't even do that either.
No, none of them do.
Oh, that's interesting.
They just have
the symbol. It's just on the card.
Yeah, it's on the card. But you flip them over, there's a reduced side. And so very basic. The counters are very basic. They are hexagonal counters.
Yeah, so they just fit nicely in the hexes. It's
great. It's kind of cool. And they actually fit not entirely. They're small. There's space in there.
I don't feel like it was too cluttered. And the artwork on them is really good as well.
Yeah, I think they put some good love and attention to the art itself. making sure it's historically accurate and also looks and feels good. And then these unit cards, they're just really well done. These remind me of old school tactical.
Agreed.
That was something we talked about. Old school tactical, you've got counters, and they'll have 3 and 4 markers on them. And that's something we've always not liked about that game.
Yeah, that's the only drawback on that one.
Yeah, because those counters you need to see a little bit better.
Yeah,
although you've got your unit
they've got
cards.
statistics listed on those, which are
Yeah.
on these, but it's like, why are we even printing them on there if we've
Right.
got these?
That was something I was really pleased with when we were fiddling around with it. I'm like, oh, there's nothing on the counters because it's all right here.
Yes.
And to me, that we line these up, we could easily refer to them. Very well done. I think that's kind of a little bit revolutionary, and I think that's something that I look forward to seeing what they're going to do in the future. I know Wolfgang is working on some new expansions, whether they're going to go, I don't know, Western Front, or they're going to just continue, 1942,
Yeah, do some
1943.
later stuff.
But, the other really cool thing about the game is when you look at the scenarios, right? So grab where's that scenario book?
Do I have it?
Here, I've got it right here.
Okay.
It's right here. Sorry.
There's 4
Huge,
books in this
by
game.
the way. But in each scenario, and you'll probably show this in the close-up, you'll see here it tells you have a certain number of starting formations.
Yes.
Right? So the Germans here have, 2 tank formations, 1 infantry leg unit, and then 1 artillery. And then the Russians have no tanks to start, 1 infantry, and no artillery to start. So you're going to take these formation cards, of which there's about 10 of each type.
10 of each type for each side.
For each side. 10 tank, 10 leg, and 10 artillery. And you're going to randomly draw, that said 2, you're going to draw 2 of those. And they can be a heavy tank brigade, or a light tank formation, or a medium tank. There's also some...
Yeah, there might be like a recon tank. Or
Right.
There's all sorts of stuff in there. So these don't have a fixed order of battle.
Right.
They have like a fixed kind of unit mixture type, kind of.
Right.
And
You're going to get some tanks because that's a tank formation, but
Yes.
it could be 3 heavy tanks. It could be 1 heavy and a light. I mean, it just depends,
Yeah,
and it's going to be different game to
And
game.
the mixture of what's in there. So, and no 2 scenarios that you replay will ever be the same.
Because of this.
Yes.
And that's interesting.
And there are other games where, most tactical games, here's the units that you have.
You've got 20 counters.
There are some where it's like, oh, you have like you get this and this, and you can choose some of this, or you've got like this complicated points by menu that you can do.
Yeah.
This is so clean. You shuffle 10 cards, I'm going to draw 2 of the tank ones. Shuffle these,
yeah.
draw 1 of the infantry ones. That's what I've got.
Yep.
Next time I play this, I'm going to do that totally units on the board.
And it makes for a different experience.
Yeah, it makes difference.
Which is cool. The other thing, I don't know if you noticed on the formations, because we didn't use this, they actually have, like, is that veteran, or is that...
That's veteran, yes.
Hard to read.
This
one is...
unit, like, quality.
Yeah.
There's, like, recruits, veterans, hardened, and elite.
Yep.
And those give you...
extra dice, or...
Yeah, bonus dice in defense or attack.
So it's going to make some randomness, some differentiation in each scenario. I think that's really cool. So just to give you an example, here's a medium, the 23rd Tank Brigade, 2 T-34s, and a T-60. So 3 tanks.
And they're all recruits.
And they're all recruits, so they're pretty
not
fresh.
good.
They're
Yes.
rolling off the line. They're not going to be great. Here you got a Storm Tank section, 2 KV-2s, and a rifle.
Like a leg rifle unit support.
So it's a mobile...
And both of those
company.
come out of the tank deck and are entirely different.
Yep.
Totally change what you do on the board.
Yep. So that was really interesting, and I'm not sure, because we really only played 1 scenario. It'd be really cool to see that over, 3 or 4 scenarios and see how much that really change. It's going to change it.
Yes.
But just really get a better feel for here's how it's going to change.
Yeah, it reminds me in a way of Red Alert, the Commands and Conquers. Not Command and Conquer Red Alert. That's a video game.
Yeah.
The Commands and Colors, not Commands and Colors. Red Alert, where you get those generic scenarios, you get a formation. This is what you get, plus kind of some things you can choose, and so they're all different in that way. This gives me that same feel as well, and again, you You just get a different array of units without it being cumbersome.
Yeah.
There are other systems that kind of have that, but it's like,
Well,
where's my menu? How many
Yep.
points is it? Oh,
Yeah, Combat Commander is one of our favorites, and there's a custom scenario designer that you can, you roll some dice, but it's a lot more complex than this. Man, here I just draw a couple cards, and it's like,
the same.
Boom, there it is.
It's very, very clean way of doing it. I really appreciated that. When I was setting this up, I'm like,
yeah,
this is very cool. Because
yes,
you could set up the scenario identically, and you're going to get replay value out of that. Then you can just draw new cards. Totally different scenario. Basically.
Yeah.
Which I just think that's very, very cool.
When you sink $100 into a box like
Yes.
this, and you've got 20 to 40 scenarios, depending on whether you bought the campaign book or not, to have that kind of variety just literally makes it ultimately replayable.
Yeah, if you were so inclined, you could buy this box and this be your only tactical game.
I mean, you would play this over and over and over again,
And you'd never have
it'd
the
be
same
different
game
every
twice.
time. Yeah,
Never. That's very, very cool to have in a game. Because I think to buy this new from them, €95.
Yeah.
Then you're going to pay shipping and all.
But
that
once
kind of
again, that box is
my
huge.
gosh, yeah.
It's chock full. These are like 1-inch thick boards that are very well done.
The production of this game puts a lot of other well-established wargame companies to shame.
It does. This is pretty good.
Like they've gone like whole hog.
Yeah. You can tell
it's very nice.
You can tell it's a labor of love.
Absolutely.
Wolfgang has probably worked on this for 3 or 4 years.
Probably longer.
Gone through dozens of iterations, played his friends over and over and over again, probably to the point that they don't want to play it anymore.
Okay, Wolfgang.
Yeah, all right, we'll play one more time. Let's move on. But and frankly, I'm not sure we even we have talked about the best part of the game.
No, we haven't.
The combat system is just, I think, top notch.
Yes.
It's unique, although it borrows. I feel like it does. Now, Wolfgang may deny. I don't know why you would need to. You want to take something that's good and build off of it. We've played a couple of games, Armageddon War, from old school. I'm sorry,
that's Flying Pig Games.
Flying Pig Games.
Woo!
High Flying Dice. Yeah, Flying Pig Games, where combat units had dice that were colored, custom dice, and you might roll a red die, and if you shoot too far, it's going to degrade down to a blue die. And this has some of those elements, but to me, it's very unique. It's fresh. There are, 3 different types of dice?
4 colors.
4.
Red, yellow, green, blue, and that's the quality from best to worst.
Reds are ridiculous. They have multiple double hits, critical hits, and really only 1 blank. But when you go down to, was it blue?
Blue, yeah. You get 2 hits and 1 suppress and 3 blanks.
Yeah, blue has 3. It's just, that's a crap die. But it's nice to roll because you can still get a hit. But man, you're rolling 2 of these red dice and even a yellow. There's an opportunity for 5 or 6 hits there.
Yeah, you can rewind the unit. But it's, if I'm an infantry gun and I'm going to attack a hard target, I would attack on the hard target row. I look at the range. That tells me how many dice and what color I roll.
Yep.
Real simple. If I'm attacking a soft target at whatever range, I roll that many dice.
Yep.
And you roll those colors, and you're going to get crits, hits, and suppresses or blanks. And then you're going to roll your defense dice.
Right. And defense dice are based on your intrinsic defense value, your armor, or your maneuverability, plus those of the terrain that you're in. Unless you're a tank. Tanks don't get...
They can.
It's just
harder for them to
typically not.
Or if you're dug in, or if there's intervening smoke, or all this other stuff.
Or if you're suppressed and you're laying low.
Yes.
But you then roll those dice in counter to those dice that are, the attack dice rolled on you, and you can cancel those hits out one for one.
Like for like symbols cancel each other out, and then whatever's left over, if anything, on the attacker's dice goes
take
through.
hits. Yeah.
Very simple. No numbers, no calculations, no CRT.
Yep.
So in that instance, in that way, this, whilst it's a big kind of complicated game, you kind of cut out all of those numbers that kind of turn people off at times.
You don't have to refer to a CRT.
Never.
You just literally look at your unit and the terrain you're in. And that's it. That's what you're rolling for defense.
Yes.
You look at your unit and the range, that's what you're rolling for attack. Pretty simple, pretty slick. And it's fast paced.
It
is very fast.
Combat bogs down in a lot of tactical games where you're like, what's the range? That gives me
That's a
negative
terrible roll.
modifiers. What's all the numbers? Okay, my number is this. Okay, what's your number? You do all that, and then
Yeah.
it's like, okay, we compare it to my number, which was, wait, what again?
What
Okay,
again?
let me
Yeah,
try.
yeah.
None of that. Here's the color
Here's
dice.
what I
here's the
rolled.
color dice.
What'd you roll? Yeah.
Very easy to roll and evaluate and
Yep.
move on.
And the other cool thing is that critical hit symbol, which is the kind of the skull and crossbone, the death head, right?
Yes.
Death's head. That is you're each going to, that counts as a hit, and then you're each going to get a die.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a roll off, but it's an odd sort of roll off because it's symbol based.
The attacker has a better die than
Yeah,
the defender.
yeah. Like you have a green and I have a blue normally.
And it's kind of like confirming your critical in D&D, right?
Exactly.
So you roll off for every crit that's left over after you've assessed all the damage and applied it.
Yeah.
You kind of roll off with this little crit. If you do something extra, like you can inflict like a
one more hit.
fallback,
Yeah.
and which can be significant, or you can do some of the little bits and pieces. It's a cute little way of having. Oh, this was like the really good shot that kind of went through and did something extra. And like they turned around and you're like, okay, I was able to withstand some hits, but turning around and moving back 5 spaces and now being like
fallback. That sucked.
I've fallen back, and now I'm going to be kind of out of action for another turn after
for
that.
at least
like,
a turn, if not 2. It was cool.
That can really like change the course of an engagement. Which is very interesting, and I always enjoy that kind of thing.
Well, and one other comment I would have: combat system was just literally fantastic. I just love custom dice, and when I was looking at these, I'm like, not only are the colors really cool, the symbology is pretty nifty, and I love how dice. That they're different like that. And any intervening hexes when there's a brush. Oh, you're going to get, if you're firing through it, the defender's going to get one additional little stupid blue die that they roll. And it's just, or if you tried to spot them and you couldn't spot them, then you're firing blind and the defender gets
extra defense
extra defense die, depending on what type of unit it was. I don't know. There's just a lot of neat things that I thought were adjudicated pretty quickly. Made a lot of common sense in the area of combat and how it works, and then was just kind of fun because we were just rolling dice against each other.
Yes.
It took out some of those calculations, which once again I love CRT checking and dice rolling.
And that's
fun
absolutely
too.
got its place. But for a new system, this is real slick.
Yeah, it is.
Thematically, you might not draw anyone in with it, but like,
right,
the combat system is something where you can be like, I swear it's not that complicated like other war games.
Yeah,
you could
try
rope someone in,
yeah,
chuck the colored dice, and you're like, sweet, awesome.
Yeah, who's not going to like
it's much less intimidating than looking at blocks of numbers on CRTs and calculating odds based on stacks of units and combat values. So I really, really enjoyed that.
Really enjoyed that. At its heart, the game is an I go, you go system, right? You roll off an initiative. Someone says, oh, I go first. You're going to move your one unit, and then you turn it over to your enemy. And your enemy's going to decide, do I pass or do I move a unit? And there's different things. You can move and fire. You can fire and move. You can full out move. You can do a fast move or a fast action to kind of add to your movement. You can dig in. You can fire smoke. Lots of different options, tactical options that I think always are needed in a game like this. Smoke, to me, is always needed in a game like this.
Yes.
How many times did you pop smoke out in front and I was like, crap, well, I can't get you now.
And it's like, it hurts both of us, but I'm the defender, so I think it hurts
You
me
were
less.
just hoping to mill through time, and, those elements are great. So... really like it. I think it's very simple. There also is a command point system that we didn't try.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of optional stuff in here.
There's a lot of depth here.
Really. You can kind of bolt on a lot of things that you want. So when you draw your formation cards to start a scenario, they have a number of kind of command points on them. And then you get that many command tokens.
Actually, what is that symbol? I can't quite tell.
It's
it's
a
a commander doing a salute.
So you get a number of those. You get a bunch of those command tokens. And then if you're using that system, that's how many units you can move basically.
Yeah.
And so
you might have 14 units, but you only had 8 command points.
Which I do like and probably would prefer.
Well, and we talked about doing it. I'm glad we didn't, because I wanted to experience that concept of just everybody moving and the gaminess that is involved with that.
Yeah, so when you've
which
got
is cool.
more units, you can out-activate someone, and you start getting into that whole competitive miniature stuff where you're like, I've got a horde, and I can do all these other things whilst you sit there and you've already used all your units.
So I'm going to run on through. Yeah.
Can be enjoyable, but it's quite gamey.
It is.
It feels like it is. Whereas when you have this command point system, it's the total opposite of that, where you're like, oh, I can't use everyone.
Yeah.
I got all these guys like, please get as many forward as possible.
Yep.
It's a totally different situation, but they've got that, and there's like a deck of command cards which you use that have just like different abilities and different like game effects, things that happen.
Yep.
They're a bit, it's just a bit more chaos.
Yeah, this one, mechanic, before activation, you can remove a damage point.
Yeah.
So you have a mechanic out in the field.
And I think you spend a command point to play this.
Yeah, probably.
I believe.
But that's cool. That's going to add more depth and variety to the game, frankly.
Yeah, and but like if you use that command system with the command cards, it's almost a totally different game.
Yeah, it becomes a game.
The combat resolution's the same, but like, what your capability is to command
totally
your
different.
army is very different.
And I think the comment that I made after we discussed that, and even after playing, was that limitation of command, that span and control, really is what you face on a battlefield, right? You've only got so much communication and so much ability to communicate. That's what that system, I think, is created to replicate.
That's probably more like realistic, I would imagine.
If you can ever say a war game like this is realistic.
Yes.
But it is more realistic because it does take into account that mechanic itself.
Yeah, it's much
you can't
less
just
likely
move everybody.
You've got your perfect command system where everyone does what you want, right?
Well, and once again, as the Russians, we were talking about it, I just had a horde, right? Yeah. I had 7 or 8 tanks. I had 18 men. And basically what I was doing was I was kind of pushing my men to the front, as a good commander should. Riding my tanks kind of up behind. And I think at first I was getting out in front because I was so anxious. I just wanted to shoot my big guns. But you're kind of holding them back, taking pot shots, looking for that opportunity where you had used all your command points, and then it's like, man, the reins are off, rush. And that's cool, because that is exactly what you try to do on the bat. You use the resources you've got under the conditions that are there, and you try to make the best of it.
And you do the exploitation.
Yep.
And that's, that's something that you can do if you play without those command points. It's harder to do with the command point system. But what I will do is I will kind of show, we've talked a lot about this. I will show you how it works, and some of the rules at least, and then we'll wrap up with some final thoughts. So here's a look at the map, or at least one of the scenarios. So you've got these large geomorphic map boards that kind of come apart. These are really thick cardboard, so they stay in place and they're flat, which is very nice. And they're dual-sided as well, but you can see the kind of the lines from the roads will connect in different rivers and streams. And then you've got hexes with center dots, so you can do line of sight. And then there's some elevated hill terrains, different forest types, brush types, buildings, and things like that. Everything you would expect in a tactical game. So we have a lot of units out on the board in this one. Some of them have... This was quite a lot. Some of them have fewer. Some of them, it's trickling in through reinforcements, things like that. So you get a lot of variety in the scenarios. But as you can see, we've got our off-map reference cards for all the units. And this is just like a unit type reference. So this is the T60 reference card. So every T60 has these stats. These little red wooden discs represent the hit points, or the damage taken, the steps, losses, however you want to call that, of the units. So that's the only thing that's kind of the unique identifier, is the damage taken to that specific unit is tracked on the unit. Everything else, these are the stats that it has. It's got a 3-tracked movement value, it's got different fire ranges and how many dice it rolls against what types of targets. So you've got this armor line at top in the grey, and these white ones are for infantry and like guns, support units, so soft targets basically. And then you have these shields with coloured dice in them. That's its armor value for front, rear, sides, and top armor. So that's on all of these, it's variations of that with all the different units that you have. Now, the game is played in a pretty simple sequence of play. You have this initiative phase where you just have a roll-off, unless it's stated otherwise in that scenario where someone's got the initiative. You just have a roll-off, whoever's got the highest has the initiative, and they'll go first. And then you do a support phase, and the support phase is where you're going to do things like indirect fire, dropping smoke, rearranging the facings of your guns, things like that. So not all units can do stuff in the support phase. So we've got this heavy MG team, for example, and you compare it to this 75mm infantry gun. This has this little S symbol for support, can do stuff in the support phase, and it's got this red indirect fire on the back. Indirect fire, this unit can fire between 5 and 11 hexes indirect fire, and it does so during the support phase. So it's kind of like you do all this kind of support stuff with some of your kind of support weapons, and after you've done that, you then get into the action phase where it's kind of an I go, you go system of activate a unit, direct fire, move, dig in, do actions and things like that. So if you're in a support phase and you want to drop some smoke, here, let me remove some of these markers just so it's a little bit easier to see. Here, okay. So I've got this 81mm mortar. So he could drop some smoke somewhere if he was so inclined. And so he can do that if we get the 81mm mortar reference card. He can do this unit can fire smoke into a target hex up to 2 nominated... okay, cool. Indirect fire at a target of 2 to 12 hexes. So it can't do it in 0 hexes, which is its own, or 1 hex, which is adjacent. 2 to 11, I think is what it said. Or was it 2 to 8? 2 to 8. 2 to 12. Okay, 2 to 12. So your indirect fire can kind of go pretty far. So we can drop some smoke somewhere, and smoke's going to act as a negative modifier to shoot through it, as it obscures vision. So we're going to pick, has to be somewhere that they can see, or you can have an adjacent unit spot for them, and that uses up, that unit's going to be activated having done that. So we're just going to drop it. We can do it, we're going to do it right here, because that's 2 spaces away, which is the minimum distance we can do it, and it's going to block up. It's going to add negative modifiers for guys who are shooting through that. So let's do that. We're just going to put a little indicator here. So this is the hex in which that I'm targeting. That's just for my own reference. And when we do indirect fire, our indirect fire uses this dice for firing smoke. We're going to use green, 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 blue, 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 blue. So you're going to drop a lot of smoke. So we're going to roll 4 green dice and 4 blue dice. And the dice have a bunch of different symbols on them. They have blanks, they have X's, which means it's suppressed. A target is a hit. Blue dice have 2 of those. They have a lot of blank sides. The green dice are a little bit better. They have a target, a crit and a target, a suppress, and 2 blanks. And the yellows and the reds are even better than that. So we're going to roll all of these. And I don't know, I like this little smoke procedure. I think it's pretty cool. We're going to chuck the dice. And this is what we're looking at with regards to hits. So you can have a maximum of 4 smoke markers in 1 hex. So we targeted this hex. So we're going to go, and when it comes to smoke, you just interpret every single one of these as like a hit, basically. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've got 4 smoke in the hex that we designated. Then we can then roll any dice that we set aside. So this gets set aside. We can roll any other dice that we want that are set aside in one of these adjacent hexes. So we're going to pick this hex, for example. We're going to roll this die again that we had set aside, and we get a hit there. So we get smoke in the target hex, but we also get a little bit extra here. If you do a bunch of misses, you get to chuck those again in an adjacent hex. So it's actually not terrible. That's why they give you a bunch of dice, because they want you to miss some of them so you can put them elsewhere. So these smoke are going to act as negative modifiers for shooting through, which is good. So this is the kind of thing you're doing in the support phase. It's kind of indirect fire, a little bit of battlefield control management. Once you've done all that you want to do, I go, you go in that phase, you then go to the regular actions phase, where you start activating these units. Our little 81mm mortar is considered fired, having done that. So what we're then going to do is then, let's say the Russians have the initiative in this one. Everyone's going to be kind of ready to go. remove all of these little markers. And so you literally just start picking units, and you're trying to go for it. So the infantry units can shoot anywhere that they want that's adjacent. Like they have a field of fire that's 360 degrees. You'll see tanks have this little green arrow on them, and sort of guns. They have a 120-degree arc of fire. So we've got Mr. T-34 up here. He's just going to take a shot at these guys here. Normally you have to do a spotting roll. These guys are adjacent. We don't have to do a spotting roll. So he's just going to open fire at them. A spotting roll would look like a D6. Not one of these custom dice, but one of these D6s. You'd roll a D6, and you basically consult the chart. So, for example, if your spotting check is this guy against this guy. So you've got attacker's type of unit as a tank. Is the target within the arc of fire? Yes. So, target's arc of fire, do they have a terrain bonus, yes or no? These guys are in the open, well, they're on a road, but guns on a road do have a terrain defense die. So, they're going to get one. So, you roll on this little chart. I needed a 4+ to spot. I didn't spot. Now, we kind of have a vague understanding that they're there. We might not be able to see them exactly, so you can still attack. You're just firing blind. So in doing that, when you're a failed spot check, let's say we were just shooting. We're not moving and shooting, we're just shooting, so we've got firing, and spotting failed roll is this guy right here. Defending unit is this. Yeah, we failed the roll, so we're going to give the opponent an extra green defense die, because we're shooting blind, we already know where they are. So, that's what a spotting roll kind of looks like. If you pass it, there's no detriment. You just keep attacking. If you fail a spot check against a vehicle, you can't shoot them, because you can't fire blindly. It's just, you miss. You don't even see the tank. It's kind of an interesting choice that they made there. But this guy's going to attack here. We don't need to make this spotting roll. So we're going to consult our table here. So we're shooting against one of these soft targets, and they are range 2 or less. So we're going to roll 2 red, a yellow, and a blue. So we've got 2 red, a yellow, and a blue. This is going to be our attack dice. And the defending unit, we're going to look at this. It's a 75mm infantry gun. Let's see, where do we go? Oh, it's right here. They have an inherent defense from their front arc of a yellow. So their defense is going to be a yellow. But they also have that terrain defense. And we decided, if we look here on this chart, terrain defense on a road is a blue die. And because we failed this, if I had failed that spotting roll, I would get an extra blue. But because we don't have to make a spotting roll because we're adjacent, we don't roll it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to roll these dice and just basically compare the results and cancel them out. So here's the attack roll. And we rolled 2 hits, a crit, and a suppress. And these are the defense die. Oh, that's awful. And I've rolled 2 blanks. So all of these hits go through. So this is 1, 2, 3 damage. So they've got 4 hit points. So 1, 2 flips them over. And then they're going to take 1 more. So that's 3 damage. And they become suppressed. And suppressed basically means they can't shoot back. They're used up. They already have an action marker on them. They can't do anything else. But it gives them a defensive die if they get attacked again because they've gone to ground. I think that's a pretty neat little way of doing that. Once that's done, so that's the regular kind of damage. Then what we're going to do is we're going to assess this crit because it was uncancelled. So when we assess a crit, the attacker rolls a green die and the defender rolls a blue die. And then we just see what happens. Wow, there we go. So we look at this. This hit cancels out this bottom hit, but then we still have a crit that goes through, like a little kind of skull and crossbones there. And then you look, there's a little chart in here, critical hit versus artillery and infantry. You hear, so no extra damage is applied. The infantry artillery unit immediately performs a fallback. this will eliminate an artillery unit because you have to leave your gun behind. All the guys run away. So that just you immediately have to run away and you lose the gun. And so this guy is just immediately removed. So crits are very good. If it's infantry, they're going to move back their max movement +1, and they're going to have a fallback marker on them, which is going to kind of take them out of the fight for an extra couple turns as that kind of resets. But that's the combat. Now, if we'd have rolled something like this, my 2 defending symbols cancel out these 2, so I would have to suffered the crit and a suppress, and we would still have to resolve the crit, which might still eliminate them, but if you can roll quite lucky, let's say I roll these, I'm going to cancel out all of these, and I'm just going to be suppressed. So you can get into some good rolls if you've got good defensive die, and if you're dug in, and you've got terrain modifiers on top of that. Defending in heavy forest is very strong, for example. You get a lot of dice to chuck back and mitigate the attacks that are done to you. And I really like that aspect of it. No number crunching or anything like that. You chuck some dice, I chuck some dice. It's very easy to assess immediately, and so this is how many hits go through, if any. And I really like that. It feels enjoyable to do that, and really doesn't slow the game down like it can do in other tactical systems. But the placement of all these markers is really important. So he's now fired, he's got the firing marker on him. If I was going to move this guy, let's say I wanted to double move. It costs 1 to move into here, I'm going to move here. I can't, the stacking limit's 1, so there's really not more places. So let's, for example, this guy. 1, 2 is his base movement, and he can do an extra movement, and now he's done a fast action, because he moved much farther, he exerted himself. What happens is you're going to go through this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, do all of this, and then at the end of the turn, you have this cleanup phase where you remove all of the white backgrounded counters. So these guys who just kind of did normal things, even a suppressed guy, he gets back up and mans his gun. Then what you do, after you've removed all the white backgrounded ones, all the yellow backgrounded ones get flipped over. So this guy, he exerted himself, he's now got an attack die -1. This dug in, they finished digging in. Now he's in a fixed position with his extra defensive modifier in it. So you get continuing effects on some of these things, which I really enjoy. If you go into close combat, that close combat can be finished, or it can be replaced with a delayed action as you kind of recover from that, and you've already taken a normal action. It takes a long time to recover from that kind of thing. I really enjoyed how some of that works with this, the degrading action symbols. If you do a little bit with everyone, they'll be fresh and ready to be able to keep fight going. If you try to really exert things to do something, it's going to take them a little bit of time to recover and reorganize before they can kind of get back into the fight. I really enjoyed that part of it as well. And you only ever have one marker, really. Sometimes you have 2 if they're dug in and doing actions, but most of the time you're going to have 1 marker, and if something else happens to them, like they get suppressed, it's going to replace this with that suppression. So it's a really neat way of doing things that I really enjoyed in this system. But that's it, really. That's the simplicity of this of the system. You do that for a whole turn. It takes a little bit of time with these big scenarios with lots of units, but then you just go back, do some initiative, do some support phase, get more at it. This is an action-packed game. You're always doing stuff because the cleanup phase is very quick. The support phase, depending on how many support units you've got, is usually quick, but also involves action most of the time. And so it's just you're constantly going and going and going. You don't have a lot of bogging down in admin stuff, even though it looks like it might do with all the various markers that you've got. So I had a really, really good time with this. What we'll do is we'll wrap up with a few final thoughts. So that was a look at the game and how it works.
Right, there's a lot there.
Yes, it is this is not a small game.
No.
Yeah.
Not small of scope, nor small of size, nor small of depth.
Yeah,
it's got a little bit of everything.
You got a bit of table creep in this one, because you got cards out, the boards aren't small, you got big old box and all the rules and the play aids and stacks of counters.
Well, it needs some organization, and I know they offer specialized hexagonal counter trays, which look really cool.
Which are you stack the units in them.
Would be very much better than what we had bags. because they don't fit in a counter tray. A normal counter tray.
I think you want some kind of storage solution for this.
Well, because I had to hunt through. I had reinforcements a couple times, and I had to hunt through those bags, and it's like that started to wear me down a little bit. I was like, oh, come on. And maybe I should have spent more time at the beginning.
It's almost like, well, but okay, so this is one thing the rules weren't exact about. Because in my brain, the way I read it is you don't draw your reinforcement card until it's time to pull them out.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you pull them out beforehand,
you know what's coming.
Oh no, it's coming.
Yeah.
Which,
no, I
which
guess
is
what
cool.
I guess what I'm saying is I could have organized that pile of counters and had all my T60s here and my BT7s, and I could have had those stacked up, but that would have been. But I wanted to get to the game.
To that point, I really liked that you didn't know what you were getting for reinforcements.
No, I thought that was great.
I thought that was very fun.
Anytime you don't know what's coming, you are going to command differently.
You're like, you see what you get, and you're like, oh, got to make up for that. Or it's like, oh, that's game changing.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
It's such a neat little thing of like, oh, I know these guys are coming on, so I can plan for this and do that.
I was praying that I didn't get another, couple infantry and a BT7.
Yeah, you're like, I want to get something.
Yeah, I got two BT. What did I get? Two T60s and a BT7. So I got 3 new tanks to throw at the back. I mean, they were coming down the middle as a spearhead. Your mobility, you're like, yes. But I didn't know that was coming. I knew there was a possibility that it could come, but I didn't know it was coming. So it was kind of a boon to me. I'm like, oh, great.
Yeah.
And you were getting reinforcements as well, and it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
And you didn't necessarily get what you want, The
formation aspect of this game, the way that it changes unit composition, setup, and even reinforcements, that is one of my favorite parts of this system, I think.
Yeah.
The combat's wonderful with its custom dice and its simplicity. But boy, the formation cards really are what sets this as something different from other tactical games. Because there's a trillion tactical games out there. A trillion World War II tactical games too. And so people are like, oh, why another one? Why do I need this? What's the difference? That's the difference to me.
Yep.
That's the more I think about it, the more that we kind of have mulled over this, that is something that is a huge boon to this game.
Yeah. Well, I'll use a food analogy because I'm a big dude. I like food.
Midwest guy.
The other day, my wife bought some Cool Ranch Doritos.
Okay.
Now, what's not great about Cool Ranch? They're great.
Yes.
They smell a little funky. Your breath gets a little gross, but man,
That's
they're
true.
delicious. Now, these were spicy. They were spicy Cool Ranch Doritos.
Interesting.
And I sat down and I thought to myself, I've had Cool Ranch Doritos dozens of times. I've played dozens of tactical games. We've played it
literally.
pretty much all. But man, when I bit into that spicy, I was like, ooh, that's different. And then my lips were tingling. And then I needed to chug down a Diet Mountain Dew because it was too much for me. And it was a surprise, right? So I was thinking, this is going to be another tactical game. We've played a bunch, but I'm glad to say this had the kick of those spicy Cool Ranch Doritos. And I'm really glad that we finally got around. Yes. We've had this for a couple of months. We've been looking at it. We've kind of been...
Yeah, and it's big. And so I'm like looking at the rules like...
Yeah, it seems a little daunting, but once you get into it, man, it really came.
Well, and I'll be honest, in the rulebook's pretty big. You only will read about 8 pages of the rulebook.
Yeah.
Like, everything is... Once you do that, like, the most complicated part of this game is, like, the close combat, which is, like, a page and a bit.
And I will say I was a little disappointed by that. It
wasn't as satisfying as I've had it in other games. But, like, almost everything else is... You're not overwhelmed with stuff. Like, yes, the rulebook is quite large, but, like, most of the stuff, when you learn this game, you're like, movement is movement.
Yep.
It's not complicated.
No.
Shooting, once you roll the shooting dice and you see it once, you're like, oh, okay, that's easy. And there's spy, and then, like, I wasn't in the rulebook very much, considering this is a foreign language game.
Yep. And actually very well translated.
Yeah,
I think.
There's a couple bits here and there, like the
23rd.
The 23rd Tank Regiment is 23rd.
And we had a discussion about that. We think that's fairly common mistake in translation, because other languages it's like it's all the same kind of.
It's some flavor and it makes no difference in the game. Like there was one part of the rules where they repeated a word, and I'm like, that's not even a foreign language translation thing.
It's
just an editorial.
Yeah,
thing.
just a.
But like, I was able to read the rules. I knew basically everything that was going on.
Yeah.
There was like one thing where I was like, this wasn't the clearest thing in the whole world, and that was to do with some of the setup stuff in one of the scenarios.
Yeah.
But other than that, I was very impressed with how much paper is in this, and for it to be as clear as it was. They did an excellent job getting this translated.
And I thought the play aid was good. I wish it had. There were some other things that we felt like, I wish that was on there. But overall, I think it's got the information that your terrain chart and some of your spotting rolls and turn sequence. But yeah, pretty good play aid, really, frankly. Yeah, overall, I'd give this a real big endorsement. And I'm trying to think, did we play any other new tactical scale games this year?
That were totally new systems?
Yeah. I mean, we played the second volume of Last 100 Yards, and
we played OST Volume 3.
Yeah, which, I mean...
was great.
I don't know.
I think this was our only new...
This might be my favorite tactical game we played this year. Which
it was very good.
We have not played 10, but very good.
And I'll be honest.
Very good.
Normally, East Front, not my favorite theme in the whole world. Normally, I don't actually like it.
In a tactical sense, it's always good.
Sure, but I would rather play something else, honestly. Tactical.
Yeah, Western Front or Pacific.
Where it's this early on the Eastern Front.
Yeah,
this is some of the real interesting stuff to me. Everything's in Panzergrau, and you got these like units which like they were not used.
Yeah,
like 2 years later, they're like,
well, they realized they weren't.
Yeah, or like
effective,
or they were turned into training units or like command units only, like and kept in the back. Like it's just interesting playing with some of these units that you really don't see in a lot of other games.
Yeah,
and that was very, very. I enjoyed being able to experience some of that. That was a huge selling point to this one as well.
Really enjoyed this.
Yes,
so really enjoyed it.
Yes, so this is Assault Red Horizon 41 from Assault Games.
Huge box.
Yes. You clear off some space on this one. Made in Germany. I don't know if it's available like on any US sites yet.
I'm not really sure.
By the time this goes out, maybe. But you can buy it directly from them. It's €95. There's some shipping involved in that. But this is well worth a look in if you're looking for a new tactical system, or if you wanted to have something that was like, I'd like to have one and play it like 1 trillion times.
Right.
Like,
and have the replayability built into it.
Yeah.
Not to mention the campaign mode that you can actually level up your guys. That's always a fun thing.
And you know there's more coming.
Yes.
Which is
he's already working on some more stuff.
There's even there's like a little blast symbol on these cards. Yep. And in the rulebook it says, this is the blast symbol. This is
later
for later expansions. You're like,
Yeah.
So like I know there's not just more stuff, more mechanics coming in the future as well.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested to see where this goes as well. So check this out if you're interested. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm Alexander from PlayersAid.com.
And I'm Grant.